Hello, everyone. I'm happy to meet you on the second part of this video. We have been dealing with the Passion of Christ now. In the first part, we were talking about the triumphant entry, how it was important that Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem, how he teaches the humility there, and what is the difference between his previous entry and the entry which he has made literally now. So he goes to the temple of Jerusalem. He must have gone so many times to the temple and everything, but this is the last time. After that, you read about the destruction of the temple in the history, destruction of the temple and everything. So now, the next important thing about in the event of Passion is the Last Supper. Well, as I told you, the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, after the triumphant entry till the Last Supper, there are so many events as mentioned. Probably Jesus must have gone to the temple every single day, maybe preaching there, because he's the one. He can't stay indoor. During his ministry, he goes from place to place, preaching preaching healing and doing miracles. So probably I would understand that even after he goes to Jerusalem, he must have done so many other things. When we talk about, let's say, after the triumphant entry, for example, in the Gospel of Luke, he talks about the parable of the tenants, and the stones which builders rejected as a cornerstone, then who's the Son of Christ, and he goes to the temple once, and he talks, sits by the offering, and he talks about the widow's offering, all those things. There are so many events where Gospel of Luke mentions about Judas agreeing to betray, etc. All these things are happening. So they are more or less similar, even though it cannot be as accurate. The same thing. If you see Gospel of Mark, I'm just turning to Master Gospel of Mark here. After the triumphant entry, you talk about the parable of the tenant paying taxes to Caesar. The similar things, the widow's offering. So all these are very similar events. But whenever I talk about the Last Supper, one thing is very, very touching for me. I always read is John's Gospel. It is. They say John's Gospel is a gospel of love. And I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. So what's the difference in John's Gospel? It is... after the triumphant entry, he doesn't mention any other things. He doesn't mention about the widow's offering or any of those events. Straight away, the next topic he goes is the Jews' unbelief. He talks about the Jews' unbelief. The next one is Jesus washing his disciples' feet. You go into that transition. It is, as I told you in my first part, it is a very emotional moment for Jesus. He's going to, we will be seeing about that in detail, like it's a very emotional moment for Jesus, because he's going to leave his disciples, whom he loved, who was with him, who here all his disciples, most of them are fishermen like Peter, James, and everyone. They left their nets, they left their father, their parents, their livelihood, everything, and they just followed Jesus. He told them, just follow me, and they just followed him. How they were chosen. They just blindly followed. Like Matthew, for example, he was a tax collector. He just left his job and he just followed Jesus. Now he's emotional now. So John's main idea of the gospel is to spread that love, the Jesus love, the radiating love, I would say the the veins of a Christian life is the love. He talks the dedication of that Last Supper runs from chapter 13 till 17, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 5 chapters of John's Gospel. He just mentions about the Last Supper, so you can see how emotional moment is that. I remember before I give this incident, this is not a permanent. Remember, this is not a permanent separation. It's going to be a partial. He tries to tell that often and often during this discourse, this conversation. Look, it's only temporary. I'm just going there only for now. Then a short while you will see after some time you will see me again. What is he talking about? So in a short while, where is he going to go? And we will go through this in detail. This is very important. What that Last Supper meant. More. There are so many events, so many teachings of Jesus, preachings about Jesus, but. In the gospel, but this one I really meditate on that during this the Holy Week. The reason is that runs the love of Christ for us. Even though he's going to be separated for only a short while, then he says, "I'm going to come back." He consoles. Like when I went to England, London. It was a very sad moment. I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago. Going to London is a big thing. Like nowadays, I fly to London. It's a 10-hour flight. 2 days after, I take the same flight, take another flight, 10 hours back. I'm in India. But it's not like that those days. If you want to go to London, it's a big thing. You need taking the passport, blah, blah, all those things. Now, when I went, the whole the mood of my family and everything changed. I'm just going there, knowing nothing. I don't know what is going to happen there. How am I going to get a job? How am I going to set my family up there? With so many questions, I go to London. So my parents are very sad. My brothers and sister, everyone. The whole situation is a kind of a very emotional kind of situation. So I'm not going to stay there forever and ever. Amen. No, I'm just going there. Of course, I'll be coming back once in 2 years or every time. Of course, the communication is there. Now with the communication is so easy that you have video call and all those things. Those days, nothing of that convenience is there. But still, what I'm trying to say is that emotional moment, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I was trying to console my parents. No, everything will be all right. So I'm going there. My wife's family is there. So there is no problem. Just don't worry. Everything will be all right. But at the same time, within them, they had that things. What my son is going to do there, and all sorts of things. So that is exactly something similar is happening here in the Last Supper. Now, the Last Supper starts like this. So obviously, in more than other Gospels, this Gospel of John, it gives the vein, the purpose of Jesus coming into this world. Look, it starts with Jesus washing the disciples' feet. Now, it starts from chapter 13. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that his time has come. So now he knows the time. John starts like he spins these events. He spins this conversation carefully, taking verses by verses, and he like what you call if you go to the spinning mills where they spin the cloth and everything is by thread. So it starts. Jesus knew that his time has come for him to leave this world. So he knows he's going to leave this world short while and goes to the Father. having loved his own whom were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The Last Supper is to Jesus. That doesn't mean he hasn't shown his love previously over the 3 years of his ministry. He didn't say no. So this moment, I love these verses. I love having loved his own who were in the world. He now, having loved his own, he loved them, but he now showed them. Now in the Last Supper, he showed them the full extent of his love. Wow, full extent. What kind of maximum love can be? Where can you'll see what greater love than a friend laying down his life for his friend, something like that. The full extent of, look, this is the maximum love you can give to your friends, or you're no more. I just don't want to break the suspense. I just want to go verse by verse, so you understand the meaning of this passion, to understand the whole purpose of this Holy Week lives in this. He said, now showed them the full extent of his love. Without reading, without understanding this discourse of Jesus in the Last Supper, you cannot understand the death. His death on the cross becomes meaningless if you don't understand the extent of Jesus loving you. So he said the evening meal was served and the devil had already blah 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 blah. Then he does something completely different. The disciples were saying, excuse me, what is he trying to do? Is he okay? So they were sitting on the table. Suddenly, let's read third verse. Jesus knew the Father had put all things under his power. Listen, Jesus knew, verses 3, the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured the water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Okay, they were shocked. What is happening? So that's why, as he started to wash the disciples' feet, when he comes to Simon Peter, he said, he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, no, you're not going to wash my feet. No way I will let you, because you're my master. You're my master. How can you wash my feet? No, I'm not letting you. So look, what Jesus, you do not really realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. It's not realizing, but understanding of what love of God means. Now, what he says is that you shall not, he says, no, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. Full stop. He's very stubborn. That's why even when Jesus tells him, I'm going to die, he says, no, I will not let you go. Jesus rebukes him and says, get behind me, Satan. He's the kind of things, no, I will not deny you. And he denies 3 times. And, he asks after resurrection, Peter, do you love me? And he says, of course, God. He gets annoyed. Why is he asking 3 times? Now, here, he says, no, I will not let you touch my feet. No way, he says, unless I wash, you have no place with me. He fixes him there. Look, unless you are, the cleanliness is cleanliness, it doesn't mean that it's a worldly thing. He said, you have no part in me, meaning Peter would have no communion with fellowship with him unless, cleansing and renewal, that's the constant renewal of friendship with God. That's what he means by cleansing. So it's not that Peter was looking dirty, but the cleansing, the first thing to realize God's love is to refresh the friendship you have. Like, he was talking about a spiritual cleanliness. So he says, let's reply. No, then immediately he says, okay, look, this is a typical Peter here. He said, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Look what Jesus tells it. A person who has had a bath need only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. So if you're sinless and if you're pure, then you no need to wash all over again. All you need is that reconciliation, the constant reconciliation with God. That is what he was trying to accept. And you're all clean, though not every one of you. He talks about Judas Iscariot. So now, this is how it starts. He washes them. He says, in order to experience my love, as he put it, the full extent of God's love, first the kind is the reconciliation. It's the outward sign. Washing the disciples' feet is outward sign. Then he says, do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, the Lord, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Okay, I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So it's the reconciliation between both of them. It's the reconciliation between your fellows. Okay, it takes the next level, next step of love. So look, this is how you show your love to others. You're calling me master. Here, I'm washing your feet. So I want this reconciliation to be done the same way you have to do as well. Now, then it goes on to it talks about Judas's betrayal. He quotes Psalm 49:1 here. I'm not referring to all of you. I know this, but this is to fulfill the scripture. He who shares my bread has lifted up his heel against me. That is quoting Psalm 49:1 verses 1. So he tells them that one of them is going to betray, and everyone is troubled now. So far he was talking about his death. Now he says, well, one of you is going to betray me. Now they're all confused. They're confused, and here he leaves, went out, and it was night. So the chapter 13 in the middle, Judas exits. So Jesus says, what you're going to do it, and he leaves. So the next, it goes to the next level. You see, here first he talks about Judas' betrayal. Next, he talks about Peter's denial. Well, he would have been really upset. He would have been really upset. He says, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. He talks about that. Here he introduces a new command. In Luke, he's in the Gospels, you talk about Jesus talks about two kinds of love. One is love for God and love for the neighbor. Okay, even the 10 Commandments. Let's go quickly to Gospel of Luke. It's a very good one to reflect here. Before the parable of Good Samaritan, he talks. We can read that in Matthew and Mark as well, but I just want to read it from Gospel of Luke. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He said, what is written in the Bible? How do I read it? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbors as yourself. Okay, there are two kinds of love. One is love for God and love of neighbor. If you read the same thing in the Gospel of John, it says during the Peter's denial, he says, John chapter 13 verses 34, he gives a new command. Love of God, love of neighbor here. A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. He sets the benchmark of our love to our neighbor. So what is the benchmark of our love to our neighbors? The commandment doesn't say, okay, you should love your God with all your heart, blah, blah, blah. Then you should love your neighbors as yourself. But there is no benchmark. Of course, how do I have to love myself? But here he gives a new commandment. No. Look, I'm going to set you a benchmark. How? Means you should love your neighbors, not love how you love yourself, but here, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciple if you love one another. Wow, this is cracking the code of the whole the Christianity. How will the people know, recognize you that you are a Christian? How you're going to distinguish that you're God's children? So it says, I give you, love one another. What's the benchmark of our love to our neighbor is, as I have loved you, so like how I loved you, I've given the life for you, so you must love one another. By this, by what? By how you love one another. How do you love one another? Like how I loved you. By this, all men will know that you're my disciples. How do I, how the people will recognize my discipleship is how I love one another, how I love my neighbor. How do I love one another? As Jesus loved me. So love of Jesus is reflected by his Father's love. So it's all twined kind of thing. So here here's Simon Peter asked so at that moment there are a couple of questions the disciples ask. So he's talking, look, he's talking some serious stuff here. He's talking about loving one another. By this all disciples will know that you are my disciples, or everyone will know. How? It's the love. Full stop. He's talking some serious stuff. And look what Peter asks. Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? A typical Peter here. Like, he's in both extremes. He said, Lord, I love you, isn't it? Then why you ask me again and again? It's the same Peter who denied that, no, I don't know him. I don't know who he is at all. He just ignored him twice. And now here, is a typical Simon Peter. He says, where I am going, but you cannot follow now. Peter asked him, Lord, why can't I? He's a very brave. I like this character. When everyone asks Jesus, they come to says Jesus sends everyone. They come back, and Jesus asks, who do people say I am? And they say, he says, they are John the Baptist, they say Elijah, blah, blah, everything. And immediately Jesus asks, who do you say I am? And Simon Peter says, you are the Son of the living God. And he says, look, you're Cephas, Petrus, rock. On this rock I build the church. This was not revealed to you by men, but it is revealed to you by my Father. So here, this guy, he's talking some serious stuff here. He asks him, Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? He's thinking about his life. It's typical our human mentality. Peter represents our mentality here. It's Jesus is talking about love, and he predicts his denial. Just the chapter before that, he's predicting that you're going to be, if you see and you come, okay. So he's telling, where are you going, Lord? Because I left my home, I left my all my my family, my livelihood, everything, and I followed you. Now you're saying I'm going, but where are you going? He says, Jesus saying, where I'm going you cannot follow now, but you will follow later. He said, you will follow later the sufferings. He was predicting about Peter's death, etc. Peter asked, Lord, why can't I follow you? Now I will lay down my life for you. A typical Peter here again. When Jesus was walking on the water, he says, if you can walk, why can't I walk? They just say, okay, come. And he walked. And when he began to be scared and he began to drown, then Jesus holds his hand, man of little faith. Why do you why do you doubt? So here's the typical Peter says, I will dare, look, forget about following you wherever you're going. I will die. I will lay down my life for you. Quickly to say, I'm using New International Version translation. So this is the verse. It says, Peter, then Jesus answered, will you really lay down your life for me? I'm just imagining how this must have taken place. Just imagine Peter asking, Lord, excuse me, but where are you going? And he says, wherever you go, look, I'm going to live my life. I promise, I will live my life. Jesus must have given a funny laugh and he says, will you really lay down lay down your life for me? Are you sure? Peter, just don't throw your words. But I tell you the truth. Before before the cock crows, you will disown me 3 times. Peter, what? Me? Denying you? No way. He says, this is a typical when some serious stuff is going on in a spiritual realm. We are talking about the worldly realm we are in, typical Peter office. Here, some serious stuff is being talked about. Now, across, okay, then afterwards is what we are going in much deeper into. Okay, so this is going to be a very deeper subject. So in order to make it more interesting and more catching, I would say, I want to take it to the third part of this thing, because I don't want you to be bored continuously watching. It's also easier for us to upload as well. So for all those technical aspects, I'm taking this video to the next part. So now we know some serious stuff. We are entering into some serious stuff with the Last Supper. Please don't miss the links are there in the page. So don't click them if you're going to the next level. So after this, so just to recap, what we have done is he has washed the disciples' feet, and he explains to them why he did a temporary what you call reconciliation is needed. It seems that Lord was referring a necessary regular spiritual cleaning. That's all. It's not you have to wash your feet all the time. Jesus did not say you have parted me, which would indicate Peter's lacked salvation, or he misunderstood the whole concept. As I said, he was asking irrelevant question at the wrong time. Okay, so you will not have a communion unless you have that reconciliation with this thing, because he says he's going to show the full extent of his love. That's what the Bible says now. He says, okay, how he has introduced a new command: love others as I have loved you. That is the benchmark. If you ask me, how much should I love others? He says, you can't say 7 times 7 or so many times. It is eternal. It is eternal. So the new benchmark of our love, the part is, okay, if God is glorified, it says, by this all men, rather, I would say, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. There is no choice. There is no question of hatred. There is nothing like that. So the serious stuff here is, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. There is nothing else. You have no other choice. If you want to be a disciple, by this all men will know that you are my disciple. Being a disciple of Jesus, being a disciple, being a Christian means you have to love one another. How should I love one another? Not like how I love myself. Sometimes people, I don't love myself, they go commit suicide. That's not self-love. Look, okay, this is as Jesus loved you. How Jesus loved you. Where can you understand that Jesus love? From the love of his Father. It's a radiance of his Father. I'm going to go in deeper. I'm so excited to see you in the part 3 of this video. Stay tuned, and God bless.